morning and welcome. I'm Stephanie Fox and I serve on your fellowship board. I want to thank you all for being here today and extend a special welcome to any visitors. If you'd like more information about the fellowship, please visit the welcome table in the fireside room or sign our virtual guest book at uuames.org/guestbook. Whether joining us from home or here in Fellowship Hall, we invite you to stay after the service for coffee fellowship, where you can introduce yourself and join in conversation with kindred spirits. Today's announcements. Roger Berger's Celebration of Life will be held this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. at the ISU Alumni Center near Stevens Auditorium. Parking is on the east side of the building in the Iowa State Center lots, and the service is on the middle floor in the Ryman Ballroom. Drop-off is available on the west side of the building. If you're unable to come in person, we will have a streaming link posted to the fellowship website calendar. So on behalf of this caring, nurturing congregation, I welcome each and every one of you to this sacred space. Here, we invite you into an experience of transformation, hope, renewal, and connections, which may inspire you to understand life in new ways. Thank you for joining us today.
Our call to fellowship this morning is entitled, Community Means Strength. We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength. That joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing, a circle of friends, somewhere, someplace where we can be free.
Thank you, Karen, for sharing those words of Starhawk. This service today has been put together in part by our Dismantling Racism team. And as they come up here to prepare to light our chalice, I'll tell you that this team, this is a part of the team here, they meet every month and write letters for our newsletter. They write articles for our newsletter. We discuss how racism and white supremacy culture affects every one of us. We try to create opportunities for all of us to learn about this and take action. So keep your eyes out and watch what's happening in the newsletter as we talk about next steps that we may be taking. And thank you to the Dismantling Racism team for your work. Please come and light our chalice.
Please say with us, in a world where hope is hard to find, we light this chalice, a sign of our shared commitment to love, generosity, courage, and compassion.
May we be a beacon to each other and all our communities within and beyond these walls.
Our first hymn today is number 407. We're going to sit at the welcome table. I want to say a word about this song that originated during times of slavery, and it was a bold, bold statement for people who owned nothing, including themselves, to sing, "We're going to sit at the welcome table one of these days, hallelujah, one of these days." And so today, as we sing this, we sing it in solidarity, we sing it for justice, and we sing it for people who no longer feel welcome in spaces in this community. I invite you to rise as you're willing and able, and let's sing together. you. Please be seated. Mary Richards is going to come up and read a story for our young ones, and the more seasoned, salty ones too. Anybody who wants to come up and sit on the blue carpets are welcome.
So our story today is called Whoever You Are. And I love this book because it looks like pictures. Every page looks like a different picture. Little one, whoever you are, wherever you are. See all the different houses? There are little ones just like you all over the world. Their skin may be different from yours, and their homes may be different from yours. See all the different skin colors and the different houses at top? Their schools may be different from yours. Look at what those books are like. They don't look like your books, do they? No. Yeah, you're exactly right. It looks like that, Kofia. Okay, and their lands may be different from yours. Oh, look, there's hills, there's mountains, lots of different things there. Their lives may be different from yours, and their words may be very different from yours. Have you talked to any children who talk a different language? Did you? Yeah. But inside, their hearts are just like yours. Whoever they are, wherever they are, all over the world. Their smiles are like yours, and they laugh just like you. A laugh sounds the same no matter where you are. Their hurts are like yours, and they cry like you too. Whoever they are, wherever they are, all over the world. Little one, when you are older and when you are grown, see that grown person became, can you tell what that grown person is? Yeah, that grown person is a doctor. And they may be different wherever you are, wherever they are in this big, wide world. But remember this, see all the different people there. All over the world. Whoops, I missed one here. Sorry. Their smiles are the same, and hearts are just the same wherever they are, wherever you are, wherever we are. All over the world. See all the hearts? And that's our story for today. Can you see that? Okay. So that's the story for today. And now it's time for you to go to the rest of your classes.
Sing them out. Well, we take a little time each morning to give and receive our offering. And always, half of our non-pledge offering goes to a local or statewide community service agency, and the other half stays here to support the programming of our congregation that make this a place of community and spiritual growth, love, and justice. All through the month of February, we are donating half of our non-pledge offering to the Ames branch of the NAACP. Their advocates commit to raising awareness for education and social and economic equality for communities of color in the electoral and legislative process. We are so glad to be community partners with the NAACP. We're going to pass the baskets here in Fellowship Hall, but for those of you at home or with a cell phone, you can make a donation online at our website today or any day. And if you're visiting today, please know that your presence with us is gift enough. We take time when we gather to have a moment of stillness, a moment of quiet, to remind ourselves of the value of stillness, of shared sacred space, to remind ourselves that our lives are connected one to another, that in the micro, we create joy and community. And even when the macro feels like all the dominoes are falling down, we are creating something in this forge of love that we share here together. We take time to share our joys and sorrows. I want to share a joy that has been happening here at our fellowship for a few weeks now. I want to introduce our new employee, Amanda McIntosh, who is our communication and membership specialist. Amanda, would you stand? We are so happy. We are so happy to have you here to refresh our pathway to membership. For those of you who are chomping at the bit to join, we have a date set, and people will be communicating with you about when's the next joining opportunity. I think that's April 13th is our next new member Sunday, and we're going to back up from that and have a pathway to membership session. But you'll greet Amanda out here in the fireside room, and if you want to know how things are going around here, that's all good. Now, I know y'all want to give her a really good, warm welcome, and that's very important, but make sure those visitors can get through so she can meet the visitors. Thank you, Amanda, and welcome here. We did not have other specific joys and sorrows. But I know from the conversations that we've had this week and in the past days and weeks, how heavy our hearts are, how challenging it is for our spirits to maintain joy in the face of so much destruction. Here we bring all of that. Here we bring our woundedness and our joyfulness. Here we bring our exhaustion and our energy for something new. Here we bring our broken hearts and our loving hearts, knowing they are all one and the same. Let's create some shared, quiet space, and into that space, please feel free to lift up the names or groups of people that you particularly have on your heart today.
Immigrants, democracy, Liz Will Cable,
Cindy, USA workers.
We open our hearts to include all the names spoken and unspoken. And we draw on the fire of love that we share. That love is stronger than hatred. Love is stronger than exclusion. Love is the fire that keeps us going. Let's sing together.
River
want to share as a reading today a little synopsis of an article that was in the Iowa State Daily back in January. And the title was "Local Leaders Hear Concerns About DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Take all the time to say all the words out loud." Concerns about DEI, immigration at the State of the Ames Community Address. This was hosted by the League of Women Voters of Ames and Story County, the Ames NAACP branch, and the United Way on January 26th. And a panel of Ames leaders, some of whom are in the room, fielded questions about the upcoming year. The panel consisted of Senior Vice President and Provost of Iowa State University, Jason Keith, President and CEO of the Des Moines Area Community College, DMAC, Robert Denson, Ames Mayor John Hala. Am I saying it right? Hala? Superintendent of the Ames Community School District, Scott Grimes, Vice President and CEO of Mary Greeley Medical Center, Brian Dieter, and Vice Chair of the Story County Board of Supervisors, Linda Merkin. The moderator asked a set of questions, and the audience also had the opportunity to ask their own. Of the 11 questions received, 7 of them related to DEI. Quote, "Our audience is concerned," said Linda Hagedorn, the moderator and member of the organization's board of directors. "There's been closing of LGBTQ offices, DEI offices, and officers at the university and schools. They're concerned that there may not be the same emphasis on the hiring of diverse staff and diverse workers in general. Their fear that there may be a neglect of creating a diverse community." And the question was, how are you keeping, to the leaders, how are you keeping diversity, equity, and inclusion alive? Linda Merkin was the first to answer the question, stating that there are no plans to disband the DEI committee. "I don't know why we would," she said. Denson was the next to answer, focusing on individual student success, stating that 32% of DMAC students are diverse. "There's no objection to helping students succeed as individuals," he said. "We're not targeting groups, we're targeting individuals. They may be successful, so that they may be successful. You may not hear us use the words, but you're going to see us do the same actions." The next to answer was Hala, the mayor, who mentioned a label change, but no change in the city's DEI priorities in terms of hiring practices of the Human Relations Commission. "It's unfortunate that we become polarized around this issue," the mayor said. "I really feel for Iowa State University in particular and some of the things that are coming down from the legislature." Following that, the audience heard from ISU's Provost Keith. "We need to be sure at the university that if there's a student that appears to not feel welcome, that we welcome them to an event. That's what we're committed to." He did not say the words diversity, equity, or inclusion, but instead said that it's about developing a relationship with a plan to be successful with all students, staff, and faculty. And then Dieter said, "If you believe in DEI efforts, if you believe that equality is good and true and right and honest, then you must use your voice. Because there's more power in the audience than there is up here at this table." And Grimes echoed Dieter's statements for the school district, saying, "I will remain committed to supporting our diverse population and ensuring equitable education for all students, striving to make everyone feel included and valued within our system." There's more, but I'll stop there. I think that message that the audience's voice is more powerful than the people sitting on the platform is the one, for me, that I really want to take in about that. We are so honored to have a guest speaker today who knows this work, who has lived this work. Monique Benken is an engaged community citizen. Monique is an active member of the Ames community, having served on the Ames Community School District Board of Directors from 2017 to 2021, and as a member and chair of the Ames Youth and Schools Action Team, ASAT, from 2017 to 2022. Monique also works at Iowa State University as a teacher, researcher, and administrator. We are delighted to have you here today. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? It's so nice to see so many familiar faces in the audience. I see some neighbors, I see some mentors, some colleagues, friends. It's wonderful. Thank you all for coming. I'm looking forward to seeing where this conversation goes.
Monique and I, she will not allow me to call her Dr. Benken, and so no fancy style.
Not today.
Not today. We have had a couple of really lovely conversations talking about where did we want to go with this, and you were quite clear with me that you did not, nor would you, speak for ISU, and that's why you were here as a committed community citizen.
Random lady off the street,
Right. So let's just
not
all...
here in my professional capacity.
And we talked about this shift, this change. There has been over the past 10 years, for sure, a groundswell for more diversity, equity, and inclusion, and bringing that to the institutional level. And you directed me to this State of the Ames Community Address. Can you say what that means to you, that even if the language is different, the work continues, and how you see that continuing?
Well, it's a complicated question. So, part of what we talked about was that there were no easy answers. There was no clarity. And I think part of what's been so interesting is to watch these individual institutions that really are the fabric of our community navigate very difficult socio-political waters. And when we go back to looking at, what happened to George Floyd, which was kind of the catalyst for a lot of the things that we see at the institutions, you saw a very monolithic response. You kind of saw everybody saying, okay, this is what we're going to do, and everybody was kind of doing these same similar steps. But once, the political or socio-political winds started to change, you saw a variety of responses. And I think you see that echoed in the community responses, some people clearly saying, we wouldn't change it, why would we? And some people saying we're going to make a plan to have a plan, right? And so understanding that there are pressures that we don't see. And so part of what we thought would be helpful is it wasn't necessarily that we were going to focus on one particular community or one particular issue, but that we were really going to try to understand that as a community, we are all struggling with how we support and continue to love and show up for each other in a community that is in itself struggling to deal with the realities that we're living with. So we'll see where we go. We'll see where we go. I mean, and this idea about, well, we're just going to change the name or call it whatever, it's not where we're going to put our energy. We're not going to put our energy there.
We talked about this work being murky.
Yeah.
The structures of white supremacy culture and patriarchy and extractive capitalism all work together to create systems of greed that leave some people out. And the gap, of course, we know is greater and greater of those who are not welcome at the welcome table. How do you navigate for yourself working through that murkiness when there's not a clear path What's that like for you? What's your own work around that?
So it's an interesting question. And so Kelly and I talked, and, we're both from Texas. That was something that, we bonded over. And part of what I think is so interesting for me is, so I was born and raised in Houston, Texas, and then my husband and I and our children, we live here in Iowa. And the differences, and really what I've seen in the 16 years I've been here, is I've just seen Iowa becoming more like Texas, right? And so I know this. Like, I know this. This is not new to me. It's not different, and it's not necessarily really different than what the country has ever really been. Right? Does that make sense? And so the day-to-day in-your-faceness of it is, I think, what's new here in Iowa. But again, as somebody who lived in Houston for 27, 28 years, this is not new. And so it's murky in the sense that I'm in a community with people who don't know how to live in this kind of environment. And so watching people kind of figure out how you find your footing in this kind of environment, I think, is where the murkiness comes from. But again, when you're in a place where this is the deal, you kind of know how to live, right? And so I think, to me, what's really interesting is, this is going to sound weird. Go with me. Nothing has really changed.
Come on.
Nothing has really changed. Nothing has changed about me. Nothing has changed about who I am, the things I believe in, the way I connect with people, the obligation I feel to my neighbors, my friends. Like, nothing has changed. And when you are someone who holds a marginalized identity, or you are an ally, even though I don't like that word, but when you support a marginalized community, rarely is that done vocally or publicly, right? And a lot of times it can endanger you to be someone who is supporting a Black family or an immigrant family or whatever it is. It can endanger you in some way. So a lot of that work has always been done quietly, behind the scenes, whatever. Nothing has really changed. So I guess in terms of the murkiness, what I would say is, it's a murkiness in people's ability to own this kind of progressive, action-oriented public identity. That seems to be off the table, but nothing other than that has really changed.
Wow. That's something. I hear it. I hear it. Wow. And I'm not willing for us to let go of a public voice on this. I think because we are a very majority white congregation and hold some social privilege, that we are able to speak up and say some things with the freedom of the pulpit and the freedom of our speech, that we will continue to defend, to do that.
And you should. Part of what we talked about was when I was on the school board, and I was on the school board when I think kind of the tone was turning, right? And the district had a whole bunch of pushback over, they did like something called the Black Lives Matter Week of Action. And we got called to the Senate, and that was kind of the start of all of this. And what was so interesting was what was happening behind the scenes. So when you're in these administrative roles, or you're serving on a board, you get tons and tons of emails. Everybody's mad about everything, right? But the concerted effort from churches and fellowship organizations in Ames to be sure that the district was reflecting their sense of what the community needed to look like was just really powerful and astounding. We did have some churches who would show up, or some fellowship groups show up and support, but it would just be once, or it'd be pretty mild. Versus the sustained drumbeat of, no, you will hear me, you will hear us. And I think that is the place that, when you think about action and being a beacon, like, I think that's a place certainly that this group of people could fill.
Well, I like that. Keep showing up.
Absolutely.
Keep showing up. One of the things that we're seeing happen certainly on the national level, and I don't know to the extent on the local level, is this distortion of what people have been trying to do, the distortion of what DEI is, or critical race theory, or those sort of things. How do you navigate do you navigate, I'm asking for myself, an internal kind of rage about that is not what that means. Come on. About so many things, but this in particular.
So it's a great question. You kind of did this number. I thought you were going over here, but you went over there. You know, I don't navigate internal rage over it because I know it's not true. And I know that any energy I give to that untruth is a distraction from the things that I can and should be doing.
Oh, come on, say that again.
And so part of the way I navigate is just like, okay, whatever, you know, like it's just not worth my time because that message is resonating with people who are never going to hear me otherwise. Right? Does that make sense? So it doesn't make any sense. And the people that I surround myself with, the community that I build with myself knows better. And there are opportunities for some education, but I don't necessarily see it that as my primary goal. You know, one of the things that I feel like I'm good at as a person is being able to ignore distractions. And to me, that's a distraction. Now, don't get me wrong, it's an incredibly powerful political tactic to get people to do X, Y, and Z, but it only works on people who were already going to do it anyway.
Wow.
Right? I don't think you could have somebody come in here and, you know, bamboozle you with the language and now you're voting to, you know, I just don't see that happening, right? So, I mean, I think that's part of it. It's like, that's not the fight. Call it whatever. Call it, I would say you can call it macaroni. My goal is the same. My goal is to help clear the field for people who are coming behind me as I am the beneficiary of people who cleared the field for me. Nothing has changed.
Oh, I love that. We talked a little bit about movement building, justice work, expanding love, call it macaroni, whatever you want to call it.
That's right.
Being not a marathon or a sprint, but a relay.
Yes.
That somebody I carry the baton for a while and then I hand it off and somebody else carries it. And you talked so lovingly about the people who carried it before you and who inspired you. Can you say a little bit about in whose name you do your work? Who are some of your mentors and ancestors that call you into the work?
So as part of what I said, now I got to try to remember what I said, but part of what I said is people who cleared the way for me are people I will never know. Right? There are people who did this work in secret. There are people who did this work, never got recognized. There are people who did this work and got fired, but they left a legacy, right? The people who cleared the way for me are people I will just never know. And I hope to clear a way for somebody I will never meet, right? It's not a particular person that I'm serving. I always say my constituent is the person coming behind me. Right? Whoever is going to be in this role, whatever it looks like, professionally or here in the community. And I have a lot of people come to me and they say, oh, I'm interested in this issue, or how do I build coalition? How do I find allies? And what I say is, find the people who are already doing the work before you got here. Like, these issues aren't new. There isn't a single issue on the, you know, in the national spotlight, other than this AI stuff, which I still don't really know how to work that. But yeah, there's not a new issue. There have been people who have been working in the space for decades. Find those people and learn from them. You know, you're not alone, and it's not my job to fix every problem. And part of what we talked about was finding the thing that you're good at, and then be good at it. Just go do that. Right? You don't have to slay all these dragons or these problems are not going to be cured in our lifetime. They're just not. And it is, I think, I don't know what the word is. It can be I think when you believe that, you put so much pressure on yourself. It's my job just to take the lap and to do what I can do in the time that I have to move this ball just a tiny little bit further, and somebody else to leave it in a place where somebody can pick it up and move it, right? That's all my job is.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. I've been saying, I didn't make it up, that despair is a tool of authoritarianism. And what I heard this week, that it wants us to be desperate. And I heard this week, don't do their job for them.
Right.
And so that was powerful to me. Okay, I'm going to see what questions you have. We have a little bit of time for questions. So if you'll raise your hand, I'll bring the microphone to you. And if you'll say your name, that would be good.
Hi, Lee.
My name is Lee Mulgard. I was watching Iowa Press Friday night where they interviewed two legislators, one a rabid right and one a rational left. And the rabid right was saying that Iowa State was especially getting way too woke, and it needs to have more American history.
Good. We could have a true history.
Yeah, well, I taught history 50 years ago, and in the state of Florida, I would be charged with a felony for what I was teaching. Do you see, and the right one was saying that the Board of Regents had gotten way too woke and their committee was going to straighten you guys out.
So what's your question, Lee?
Have you seen any of that push for getting rid of the wokeness at Iowa State?
So Lee, thank you for the question. Part of what I would say is where we entered the conversation, this isn't new. I'm from Houston, Texas, right? This isn't new. And part of what I think is important for us to learn is think about how much of your time is spent at work. How much of your life, like if you're going to draw a pie chart, how much of your life, the internalness of who you are is your job? I go to work, I do my 8 hours, I leave. I go home, right? My impact is not only what happens to me at my job, right? My kids, I've got 2 kids at home, and they're in school, however, it's 6, 7, 8 hours a day. That's not the only learning that they have. So when I talk about not getting distracted, that's part of what I talk about, right? I can't control what is happening at the regents and the legislature and who teaches what and X, Y, and Z. It is in a lot of ways irrelevant because I know that even, we go back 25 years ago, these organizations were never telling my story in a way that is authentic and useful for my children, right? So in some ways, I want us not to get hung up on what they are doing and what's going on. We still have an obligation to help people navigate and to communicate our values to them, even if it's not able to happen inside of these formal structures. We still have an obligation. Does that make sense? So, I mean, let me just tell you, I cannot tell you how many lessons from Ames Middle School or Ames Elementary we have had to unteach our children. This is before all this got started, right? Like my daughter, who was at school here in the district, would come home and tell us this. We had this this Thanksgiving fantasy story, and we have to sit down and say, "Okay, honey, let me tell you that." So this has always been happening. Nothing here is new. You still have the obligation to create the reality for your family and your communities that are consistent with your values. So that's what I would say about that.
Thank you. Another question or two. Hey, Mary.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I spent 20 years working at Iowa State on diversity programs predominantly funded by the National Science Foundation, and also serving underrepresented students in science, technology, engineering, and math. So I did that across the Midwest, across 16 institutions, private, public, community college, and regents. So I watched this unfold, right? And I appreciate what you're saying about people are going to keep doing the work. The titles have changed. The funding has changed. And for the National Science Foundation work, there is no funding. So it's interesting to watch those things sort of collapse. But I just wanted to say that I know tons of people that will continue doing the work. Many of them not minoritized people, but they are in these institutions doing the work. And it means just looking for students and, doing the work on the ground. So my question is, what can we do as a religious institution to continue doing the work in the community, and you've kind of answered that. But I think it's also notable to say that it has changed because the funding is gone. So, or at
Well,
least-
that funding is gone.
Right. Well, and other funding.
Sure,
I mean,
absolutely.
The Regents
Yeah.
institutions, you
Yeah.
know, we
Yeah.
heard the responses from the institutional leaders. So what can we do in the community, I guess, as outreach?
Yeah. That's a great question. So I was talking to Reverend Clement when we started having this conversation, and we were talking about Amos, which I believe is housed here. And we were talking about ASAT, which is a sister group in some ways, and kind of how these groups were birthed. And this is what I recall. So after the 2016 election, there was a group, actually, I remembered it was called the Ames Progressive Alliance. The Ames, some of y'all might remember this. This is in 2016, the Ames Progressive Alliance put out a call in the community for everybody who was interested in better to show up at the Ames Public Library, and we will go from there. Do y'all remember that? And I went. Nobody knew what we were going for. All we knew was we didn't want what we had. And we showed up, and it was standing room only. And it was so many people that they had to have an overflow room across the street. And what they said was, find the thing, and we had little stickies, and we put them all over the board, right? The things that you were interested in. And it was find your area, find your group. And what they were really saying is find your people. Find your community. Find the thing you're good at and do it with people who are also good at it, right? And so I think, to me, that it would be great if we had something else like that again, because so many amazing groups came out of that. But it would be great even if you just do that here. So part of what we talk about when we talk about this kind of turmoil being a marathon, you know, I was like, I don't know what to tell people to do. I don't know what to do. But, you know, as I've given it some thought, I think you have to have a time of grieving. And I think you have to give yourself that time, because I think if you don't walk through grief, it complicates everything that comes after it. What I hear is a longing for, it used to not be like this, even though it really always did used to be like this, but that's irrelevant. For you, for some of you, it feels very different. And I think you want to give yourself a chance to grieve that loss. That's a very devastating loss. Give yourself a time limit. I'm going to grieve for a month. I'm going to give myself 2 months. Okay, I'm going to wallow in my tears for 3 months, but then I'm going to X, Y, and Z. And I think that whatever comes after that is really individual. I encourage you all, because I think we were talking about, you have the 7 principles, you know? Like, if you just think of a wheel, which one of those is you? Where's your authentic sweet spot? That's all you got to do for the next 4 years is pour generosity. Hey, I'm going to spend the next 4 years developing my sense of generosity. That's the way I'm going to stay connected to my faith, my community. That's the thing I can give, right? I encourage everybody to think about what a roadmap looks like for you for navigating. So it's going to be 4 years at a minimum of chaos and frustration and bad things happening. It just is. It's going to be very difficult. We haven't even got started yet. We're still in the previews. Right? It's going to get very difficult. So I encourage you to think about, what am I going to do every day to help me get through this marathon? And then what is my kind of midterm goal? What am I going to do kind of in a regular rhythm, not necessarily every day? And then what's your long-term goal? Right? What is the thing ultimately you're wanting to change? Are you wanting to change the way your house feels, the mood in your house? Are you trying to change an institution? Are you trying to make change at the state and federal level? Like, what is this long-term thing? But I think just that clarity and putting them in tiny little boxes helps it not feel so big, helps us not try to be fixing every single thing out there, right? Because we will get exhausted, because there's always something. And just know, like, if you commit to doing your part, then there's somebody else in the room who will take care of the other parts. That's the marathon piece. That's the relay race, right? I don't have to fix this because I know Joni's working on that. Does that make sense? So that would kind of be what I would say.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think we're going to close there, but I'll say that, Monique, you've agreed to stick around during coffee hour. So grab your coffee and a treat and bring a question and a conversation with that.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. about building a new way. Please rise and body your spirit as we sing along. For extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again. I came from a humanist congregation in which we had to add, and in our minds. It's deep in there. I want to say some words of gratitude, especially for Monique Benken. Thank you again so much for being with us. For our musicians, for Fellowship Voices, our accompanists, Amber Anderson, Barb Evenson, and Milo Bignall. Our tech team, Dan Haug and Deborah Kumar, board member Stephanie Fox, facilitators Karen Bates and Amy Slagle, with special thanks to Riordan Willeen. For our coffee servers and our treat bringers and our cleanup crew, to our dismantling racism team, so many people come together to make Sunday morning happen. And so we are really grateful for everyone's participation. And tech team, I'm just going to take a moment and we're going to wave to the people online. There's a camera back there. Let's say hello, online folks. You make our circle complete, and we're very glad that you are here too. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Blessed be, and go in peace.